Hello everyone, I hope you're keeping well. I have another 4K Blu-ray review for you, today in the form of The Lover. This is the 4K Mediabook release from Cape Light Pictures, and I'm going to be getting into the film itself, the picture quality, audio quality, and the overall packaging. I recently reviewed the Concubine Mediabook from Cape Light Pictures, so if you haven't seen that, I'll include a link down below. If you watch that video, you'll be familiar with Cape Light, but if not, here's just a bit of an introduction to them. They are a Berlin-based film distribution company, and they are very well known in Germany for releasing films theatrically and on Blu-ray, particularly these Mediabook releases. And they have released films like Parasite, Free Solo, and many classics like Rollerball, Old Boy, and Running Man. In 2019, Cape Light Pictures started releasing foreign films in the USA with their partner MPI Media. So yes, The Lover is an absolutely incredible looking Mediabook release, just like The Concubine that I reviewed recently. Inside the packaging, you get the 4K Blu-ray. You then have a 24-page booklet with some writings on the film. And then you also have a standard Blu-ray in the back. Like I mentioned with The Concubine, these media books are the height of a DVD case, so they will be a bit taller than your standard Blu-ray case. Overall though, I'm very impressed by the packaging of this. These truly are beautiful releases, and I think if I had the choice, everything I have would be a media book, but obviously I don't have that choice, so I'll pick and choose them when I can get them. So, the film itself. Well, this is a bit of an interesting choice to be getting a 4K release in general, because I honestly didn't expect world cinema releases on this level to be getting the 4K treatment, and I'm glad we are. So getting these films that maybe don't get as much attention as the big blockbuster films, getting them on the format is just a great thing. The Lover was released in 1992, directed by Jean-Jacques Annaud, and it stars Jane March and Tony Leung. Not the Tony Leung from Shang-Chi and the Wong Kar-wai films, although this Tony Leung was also in Ashes of Time, so I just made a very confusing statement here. Anyway, it's Tony Leung. The film is written by Marguerite Duras, based on the best-selling novel that she wrote prior to the film, and the story is autobiographical, so it's based on her own upbringing back in the 1920s. Now, the story is where things can get a bit controversial for some people, because it's a love story between an older man in his 30s and this girl who is 15 and a half, so she is underage. Now, naturally, that would set alarm bells ringing for many people and put them off watching this kind of thing altogether, which I can understand, but just hear me out, because that is not what this film is about. The film is not glamorizing that kind of relationship. It is not exploitative in any way. And the central crux, the issue within this story, is not one of a difference in age in a relationship or it being underage. The difference is about race and how this man who is Chinese and this young girl who is French, there is a divide there that many people in society do not deem is right. On the subject of the age difference, the filmmakers actually wanted to increase her age to 17 or 18, I believe, but then that was going against the wishes of Marguerite Duras, because this is her story. This is what actually happened, and she wanted to tell it in this fashion. So there can be some very complex and interesting discussions about the nature of this film. But what I take away from this film is not anything exploitative or glamorizing, like I mentioned. It's actually a lot more melancholic. There is a sadness to this film, a sadness to the relationship portrayed in the film. And that's what I take away from it. I think the film is very well done, perhaps a bit long in the tooth. I think the runtime could perhaps be shaved down a bit, but that's just what I got from it. So, with all of that said, let's talk about the 4K disc. How does this look? Well, I think this looks quite amazing on the 4K disc. Naturally, being from the 90s, this was shot on film. It was shot on location in Vietnam, and I think that is one of the main things that I take away from how good this looks, is the location of Vietnam on screen, the colours, the vibrancy, and they really did create the period of the 1920s very well for this film. The film on this 4K disc has a very natural look to it, a very filmic appearance. The grain is intact. There doesn't appear to have been any sort of smoothing techniques. And the film print itself is quite pristine. I didn't really notice any damage or degradation to what had been scanned for this 4K release. And on top of that, I think the addition of the HDR grade really does help elevate this 4K disc, particularly in those exterior scenes with the bright blue sky and the tan beigey colours of the streets of Vietnam. It really does accentuate those colours, but also in the darker interior sequences where there's quite a lot of shadows, the wider contrast that is given from an HDR grade really does help in those scenes. As for the audio on the disc, it sounded fine to me. Nothing to write home about because it's just a DTS 5.1 soundtrack. Reading up about the audio track, it was available on a previous French Blu-ray, but that Blu-ray was only available in France. And on that note, this is actually the first time the film is being distributed on Blu-ray outside of France, so that is very exciting. In terms of special features, there's a few photo galleries on the disc. There is a great making of behind the scenes documentary of how they made this film, going into the casting of how they cast Jane March in the leading role and how they found the locations in Vietnam, etc. So that's a great addition to have on the disc. And of course you've got the booklet in the centre of the media book with those extra writings about the film. So to conclude, the Lover 4K and Blu-ray Mediabook is a great success in my eyes. It's a film that unfortunately I think many people will not give a chance due to the perceived taboo of what I mentioned earlier, which is not what the film is about really. This is someone's true story, that this happened to Marguerite Duras, and this is a story she wanted to tell, and it is told quite beautifully, and it looks beautiful on this 4K disc. So if this review has intrigued you, I would definitely implore you to go and buy this and check it out for yourself. You can click the links in the description down below if you want to buy it, and I think you'll have a great time with it. So that has been my review. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please do let me know and subscribe to the channel. I'll be back with more Blu-ray reviews very soon. So until then, stay well and keep watching great films.